Good morning and welcome to day 138. We are looking at 1 Kings chapter 3 today, 2 Chronicles chapter 1, Psalm 78, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We've got Solomon beginning his reign. He has a strategic marriage with the daughter of the Egyptian Pharaoh. Now, this is probably not a literal daughter. We know from Egyptian records that the literal daughters of the Pharaoh were only married off to Egyptians. So this might not be the literal daughter, but it is someone connected to Pharaoh in Egypt. This is a strategic alliance in order to provide protection to the nation of Israel, to avoid some wars with the powerful kingdom of Egypt. Now, Solomon is working on building the temple, expanding the palace, but he's also working on the walls of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is vulnerable right now as Solomon is going through these building projects. And so by marrying foreign wives, he is buying some protection from the powerful kingdoms that are around the nation of Israel. Now, we are going to see as we continue reading that foreign wives cause problems. Foreign wives come with foreign gods and foreign religious practices. So we're going to see some of the impacts of that later on. So Solomon loves God, it says, plus Solomon worships at local shrines. Now this seems a little weird to us. What does this matter? We might be thinking. So the temple has not yet been built. And so the people of the nation of Israel who worship God have set up shrines in their local areas to be able to worship God. Now, once the temple is finished, that becomes a central point of the worship practices of the Jewish faith. And so the primary worship happens at the temple. People go to Jerusalem for the major holidays, religious holidays, and everything is focused on the temple. So here we're seeing some of the practices that are in action before the temple gets built. We're also getting a sense here that this is, of course, is written later on after the temple is built, and some of it is written after temple is destroyed by the Babylonians. There is a definite bias towards worship at the temple in Jerusalem, and they are not as big on worshiping God in other places. God then comes to Solomon and says, I'd like to give you a gift. What would you like? And Solomon thinks about this and he asks for a God-listening heart for discernment. So basically, Solomon is asking for wisdom. He's not asking for long life. He's not asking for military or political power. He is asking for the ability to lead his people. So this is an important thing, and this is to know about Solomon, and this is one of the reasons why Solomon is revered, is that he lived a life of wisdom, partially because he was wise enough to ask for that as a gift from God. The next story in Kings is about two women and a baby, and this is one of those stories that has kind of leaked out of the Bible, and a fair number of people have heard about this story. Two women give birth. One of them, their baby dies quickly, and then there's a fight over who is the real mother of the living baby. And there aren't men in their household to take care of this. The king is also the head judge. So this is something that has been common even through Europe and other places where the person who's in charge, the lord of the manor, the prince, the king, whoever, is also the primary judge for settling disputes. And so Solomon serves in that role here. And he listens to the stories. Again, he's been given the gift of listening for wisdom from God. And he has to make a decision, whose baby is this? So we all think about, the one mom's like, fine, whatever. But what really is important here is Solomon listens. And as he listens to the two stories, it's clear that one of the women is focused on death and one of the women is focused on life. And so he figures out who the real mother is by listening to them. And I think that's an important lesson for us today, because sometimes we're not very good at listening. We're not good at listening to the people around us, finding out what's really going on in their lives and what their needs are. As we continue with the same narrative in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, we see this dream story again about Solomon having a dream, God coming to Solomon. This is part of an ancient tradition, not just within the Jewish faith, but around this whole area and even around the world. There's a long tradition that during dreams we have a way of connecting to the divine or sacred in our lives in a special way, and that our God or the gods of whatever religious practice you're talking about frequently speak to people through dreams. Solomon ends up building the economy as well as architecture and the military, and the readings in 2 Chronicles really go into a lot of detail about the economics and the wealth that Solomon builds up. In Psalm 78, we are reminded to pass on our knowledge and experience of God to new generations. And I think this one kind of stings for some of us today as we're reading this, because we see that our churches today, our believers today, are struggling to pass on a living faith to new generations where they are engaged and practicing our religious traditions. So we are called to never forget. This is a psalm of remembrance of Jacob and the Exodus in the wilderness. It explains human sin. It also goes through God's faithfulness and compassion. It ends with an affirmation of the leadership of the tribe of Judah and the position of Jerusalem or Mount Zion as the holy site for the temple. So this is really a psalm that reminds us to continue passing on the faith and staying strong in our faith, but also setting up the foundation for why Jerusalem is important, why the tribe of Judah is in charge, and why that is the focal point for Jewish religious practices. Moving to the New Testament, 2 Thessalonians 2, again we have this question of when will Jesus return, and we are reminded not to fall for prophecies and rumors. No one knows when Jesus is coming back. Now, this is written a long time ago, but we still have people today who are listening to prophets and rumors, trying to figure out, is Jesus about to come? We've got people saying, oh, the wars in the Middle East right now means that Jesus is coming. Some people will say the earthquakes, the floods, the fires that we're experiencing right now mean Jesus is on his way. Again, don't listen to this stuff. Paul is saying our job is not to figure out exactly when Jesus is coming back. Our job is to be thanking God, accepting God's gift of faith, and doing Jesus' work. Today we should be focused on the presence and serving God and our neighbor, and not worried about when Jesus is going to come back. If we are doing the job that Jesus has given us, we will be ready at any time, whenever Jesus decides to come back. So go today and live with thankfulness and joy in the life and grace that God has given you. We'll see you next time.